I saw some graffiti recently about saying something about freedom of the press, and I think the only reason that the freedom of the press statement is ever relevant, even in the minds of journalists who appeal to it, is when they think that the reports they've got to produce are so easily justified to be something that society needs to be informed of. But if a report is truly false, then they've essentially abused this freedom of the press. Because I understand journalism and I studied in school, and a lot of my writings are about the sorts of offenses that I see religious people as not only perpetrating and then being ignorant of, while saying that their religion is the only way to be a moral person. So I understand statements like freedom of the press, but I understand also that a journalist would only truly think that statement is decent if they fall back on, oh, but we have the right to report. Because these journalists will go home as people, and they'll get undressed each night. So anyway, if a press report is truly false, then all they've done really is just cross a person against basic rights that even apply to all the staff that did the crossing. So if I were a journalist, I wouldn't work for a corporation owned by a religious, like a religious CEO. So these Freemasons haven't yet confronted that their religion is based on the existence of a character that doesn't exist at all. So they're trying to say things like art, artists are criminals, or artists are criminals, and have no comprehension of it yet. They can't make cases like that unless they search through content, select some sort of content, and then say this content is morally prescriptive in the artist's mind. And they can't do that. But they'll try, and they'll try and pull scams, and essentially they haven't. Can you imagine trying to be a profiler who is also a Freemason? Your religion tells you that a devil is talking to you at certain times, is in some sort of relationship with you. You're so because of that, you'll make what I would call existential errors in judgment, where because you weren't able to work your way through what it's like to understand that a religion is false, you'll make incorrect judgments concerning others. So the proof is there. Like they try to say art is morally prescriptive. All art, no matter what the art is about or explores, is morally prescriptive. So they imagine Lucifer giving commandments to them, but because Lucifer really isn't there, they'll try and say things like, oh, it's the video. The video is subliminally programming you. Things like that. Anything they can say to try and establish conversational binds that will result in me being hospitalized rather than going to court. And that's Gary Kantz and Roger Toll. I do think that calling the religious as a collective group the religious right could be risky, because they think things like a deity is talking to them and even talking through other people. So they might suppose that if I call them the religious right, then the word right sounds like morally right, or idealistically right, which means they'll equate it with even you are saying we're correct. And that's the sort of things that they do. So I think they should be called it should be therefore call them the religious wrong. We know it means right wing as a demographical statement. Yeah, I like the documentary Religulous. by Bill Maher. It opens criticisms against all three monotheisms, Abrahamic faiths. So those two owners of capital chemists genuinely get excited by the process of falsely jotting down conflicts, because they know if they were to talk to me directly in person about why they think their Freemason religion is even true at all, they would lose the debate. So they go, oh well, you might have me there in a discussion, so I'll move on to saying you have this and this conflict, this and this conflict. And that's made you too sick that you could not appear in the magistrate's court. That's their religion at play too. Religious epistemology is constantly about what you believe in. So if you look up belief in the dictionary, it talks about trust, and so they're asking after whom you've established a trust arrangement with, what people you trust, and it's not just predatory. I genuinely think if they overturned or tried to profile their own religion, even they'd have to admit it was a false religion too, and then they'd go, and then they might lose motivation to be predatorial towards citizens here who defend the Rights Charter. And because they're a private sector company, even if you keep saying that you defend the Rights Charter, in my case, I defend the Rights Charter, but I scrutinize the religious paragraph, that section, because I think it can be used to excuse any sort of indecency, because the person could just say, I was obeying my religion. The woman who drowned her kids in the bathtub was essentially pleading that in court. She was saying, God told me, I heard the voice of God saying, drown the kids in a bathtub. So those stories about Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac, or God sacrificing Jesus, she believed in them and then drowned her children in a bathtub. And so it's fucking disgraceful. And justice organizations need to start, I think, comprehending that it is fucking disgraceful. Instead of going, because we want honors from Queen Elizabeth, we'll start saying light bulbs and pencil erasers are causing psychoses and paranoia and schizophrenia. It's idiotic. It's idiotic for the things that Christianity directly causes to not be called out. And I've abstained from any sort of religious belief since age 15, 16, when I left church. I think what also has been absconded is, that's a new word I learned, absconded, is this prospect that if legal cases start being made against religious so-called instructions in the Bible or other holy books, it'll mean that whatever prominent people in history, or if they're alive now, that used their positions of authority to state their endorsement of this or that religion, might be called on indecency. And as there are media reports saying that Queen Elizabeth's gone a bit nutty or is sick, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I've thought for some time about her question. She said, to what greater source of inspiration? So it is literally a question, but because she's also the leader of the church, it's a question that she's asked, I guess, while having all this support rally for her from Christian activists. So if you were to suppose, for the sake of example, that I was playing the Batman movie from 1989, I think it was, and the scene where the Joker and some goons storm a museum and start painting, splatter painting on sculptures and paintings on walls. And even if I was like massively cheering in front of the television to that scene, at the correlating to at the same time that Gary and Roger were initiating a surveillance, um, a moment of surveillance, then the two of them would conclude to themselves, "Oh, he believes in the Joker. I wonder how long until he's triggered to go and storm a museum." All of this is because, yeah, their ability to formulate questions, they don't understand things like how do you know the difference between legitimate and stupid questions? Because they haven't truly turned to the Freemason pioneers or founders and asked them, why isn't our religion a load of pretentious bullshit? And so what they should have done was decide if they wanted to be in that religion, then they should not have had any connection to any sort of profiling interests at all. They'll stipulate the false conflicts, that's known as framing the issue. And yeah, I genuinely wouldn't. I'm reluctant about even with all the philosophy I've read. I would be reluctant about thinking I could be a profiler, even though, I've talked about why their religion is problematic. The golden rule. The golden rule means you can be around someone without, if a slaveholder said, "I feed my slaves every night at 7 p.m., then he would say to a third party things like, "See, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I feed my slave at 7 p.m. just like how I have dinner." It's the same thing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So that golden rule means that individuals are not asked to say anything about them as an individual person, while the person who believes in the golden rule falsely assumes that you're like them because you stood silent while they babbled on about their religion. And that's not disrespectful to Jesus either, because I don't have any convincing proof that Jesus ever spoke that rule. And I know that the accounts of his resurrection are traced back to paganism in other sources as well. So I can relate to Jesus as one of the most misrepresented men in all of history. But I obviously don't believe in things like, if you believed in miracles, you would be forced to conclude that David Copperfield's acts were because he had supernatural powers from a god. And I obviously don't do that. So, anyway. So yeah, these two Freemasons do genuinely have a problem with the literal, lateral, and true definition of the word art. And that's, again, because they have, I suppose they don't know the words to use to explain why their Freemason religion is fake. So that's what they'll say in the end. They'll go, "Oh, did we not comprehend that the Lucifer doesn't even exist? Oh, that must be why we thought art was dangerous and causing other people to disrespect and mistreat others." Oh, and then they'll realize they shouldn't have even have had the audacity to think they could profile anything or anyone while they believed in all this fake pretentious shit. Once again, I'm not criticizing moral teachings. I'm just saying no one who read The Little Red Hen that I know of didn't comprehend the morals from it at the price of insisting that now we have to say that we have a little red hen in our house running around. Excuse me, I have to feed the hen. I'll be back in a little while. Gavin Habburn was, in the start of my adulthood, a decent friend, but because I knew him while growing up, I knew there was a potential for me to be misrepresented while going, "Well, you were around once when I was, you know, dealing with a lot of difficulty. So because you were nice to me during those years, I'm inclined to place a certain amount of trust in you. But um, I've even, I think I've possibly even scientifically proved this. If any kind of exchange starts with a third party or any person telling you telling you they've violated the Privacy Act in relation to you, then it just festers in their head. Um, they'll start thinking, even if you're nice, it's a no-win scenario. You have to say fuck you just for violating my privacy. Otherwise, if you're nice to them and let it slide, they'll start to think, well, I think you've done something worse to somebody else. And this should be applied, since I know that this Capital Chemist group doesn't even think of that either. I now know what they mean by they're in the private sector. It means they're saying that they don't answer to the federal government's Human Rights Act, while thinking at the same time that they can invest in the stipulation of mental conflicts, which only leads to the dispensing and forceful injecting and administration of antipsychotic prescriptions, which get, $1,000 health insurance commission rebates. So it's genuinely not having an issue exist pertaining to you, but not even getting to find out if the issue is relevant to you, because no one is directly approaching you and saying what the issue is about. And yeah, that's it's another sign that the perpetrator or the instigators of the dilemma are religious, because they are the ones believing and investing their trust in claims that have no proof, like the existence of Lucifer, for example. I even know that because I don't accept the existence of Lucifer, they're inclined to then therefore figure that I'm Christian and in favor of Jesus Christ as a savior and the Christian biblical God. Because, but I know that to be a false dichotomy. The question, do you believe in the devil or God? I don't believe in either. I like the statement forgiven in heaven. Sorry, not forgiven in heaven. Forbidden in heaven and useless in hell. So, and if that doesn't allude to no, I don't believe any exists, because I learned about Galileo. The Catholic Church were nicer to Adolf Hitler than they were to Galileo. They only said sorry for calling him a heretic in 1992. So they were going, oh, okay, so Earth does spin around the sun. Oh, then God didn't put it at the center. Oh. But yeah, if anybody tells you they've violated your the Privacy Act, then you have no idea to what extent have they violated your privacy. And if you trust in them, they're inclined to think you've done something worse than violate another person's privacy. So it always comes back to, well, why did you instigate that first offense? Because it's only resulted in you thinking I would commit an even worse, some sort of offense that's worse than the violation of another person's privacy. The fact that they thought they could fall back after my best grades in high school and college were pretty much in art. They're trying to say video has fucked my head. Then are they going to say that to those teachers in high school and college that I didn't qualify those courses, and I didn't complete the assignments, or um, you actually, art is where you get to find out who has true integrity, because you learn over time that they couldn't do the things that they are doing through art unless they did have absolute genuine integrity. Um, so, Jim Carrey is a good example. He plays a lot of characters that have absolutely nothing to do with him off set. And I've heard him speak to some extent in interviews about philosophies he's into. And I'm very much into philosophy. It reminds me that we can often be taught that certain propositions are true of and they want us to think they're true of every human everywhere, but they ultimately just reduce to something arbitrary that a person's made up. Now you can try to say, well, does that apply to our rights charter too? And it sort of, in a way it does, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't. See, if a person punches you, for instance, they've worked against your right to move, but they have taken more advantage of their right to move. So it's the person who punched you that obviously does not just believe in the right to move. They believe in the right to move while punching you and infringing your right to move. So that's why I think these sorts of rights came together in the first place, is because maybe offences were defined to some extent by how these basic rights are needed for any sort of action, even an offensive action too. So they're trying to find what statements apply to absolutely all of us and are needed for our survival and flourishing, and are axiomatic. Now, in that case, I would therefore stress that you cannot say that conversion to a religious idealistic group is a basic survival right. That's absolutely bullshit. Yeah. Basically, in addressing this video issue, the Penn and Teller's bullshit episode with the stained glass cross, it had a pictorial symbolic significance to me of when, at corporate level, men like Roger and Gary choose to take a hit out on someone. So I saw it more or less as a crosshair, and the up and down arrows representing the up and down quarks in subatomic particles. So it was all about their hits, the picture. Once I realized that they're trying to frame the issue and frame conflicts for other people through religious epistemology, then that made me realize all the people they're putting in psych wards, they're doing so on the basis of religious discrimination. So I don't think that's right at all. And they must therefore just be hoping that the person, whoever they take will just be unaware that that's why they were, unless they know that there would be a pending case involving them that they're ready to go to the magistrate's court for. Then it's religious people going, well, we saw you playing Mario Brothers last week, so we think you're going to jump on someone's head soon because you seem to enjoy playing Mario Brothers. So we think you'll jump on someone. So that would be an offense. So just to prevent this crime, we're going to make you a mental patient for the rest of your life. And it's not a pharmacy scam, because there are better pharmacies in Canberra than the Capital Chemist franchise. Any other franchise than the Capital Chemist franchise. That's a pharmacy. So yeah, the fallacy for their in on their behalf is if they see you like laughing or smiling or enjoying a fictional act in a movie, they will preclude that you believe in it because even in that scenario, what you've done by smiling or like clapping or applauding a fictitious act, it's more real than their religion. So they want to be predatory towards it, and go, well, this is what you believe in. So if you see someone play a villain, they won't comprehend you. They'll comprehend you as having a monkey see, monkey do. Uh, I'm thinking about this villain, therefore now I am a villain, sort of thing. Therefore I would be against the Rights Act. They think that way because they're both Freemasons and they own a business in the private sector. When what you could be, what you were probably doing was thinking that the actor that played the villain has played the villain quite well. And the better that an actor plays a villain is by how convincing they make the villain seem. So it's really silly because I wouldn't say I'm an adversary to the Masonic religion. I'm potentially an adversary to any form of religion because I've studied why they're never true. And because they're never really true, I don't know why that they are on the Rights Act as something, as if to imply that they're needed for our survival. Because they're not. I would think of it as the best first gesture toward the Aboriginal people, whose Dreamtime philosophy already has closer association to aspects of evolutionary theory than anything that Christianity sought out to prove, starting with the Garden of Incest. So the best way to say sorry to the Aborigines for stealing their continent would be for us to, I bet the people that stole it from them were Christian-minded. And you know, the black skin reminded them of you know, going to hell, so who knows who knows how they thought. The best way to say to the Aborigines, we're sorry for stealing your continent, is to break away from religious involvement.
Wanna know what Zeus said to Narcissus? You better watch yourself.
I think today we're gonna study how to serve the customer. No, we're not. Looking at basic human rights, it seems that our Human Rights Act in Australia, we have right to movement, right to life, right to health, and right to expression. And so, throwing I think right to religion. A lot of people will read that thinking you won't be right unless you're into a given religion. And if they're reading it that way, then a lot of these people might even potentially spend a lot of their lifetime thinking, oh, everything's God or the devil or God. It's like the yin yang, the sun or the moon, you know. And they won't even realize that questions like, do you believe in God or the devil? Can be called a false dichotomy and stupid, a bad question or a stupid question, because they won't be right unless they're religious. Yeah. The second myth is about you don't have moral awareness or the ability to be introduced to a nightmare, a puzzling nightmare, along which you will gather a whole lot of moral awareness, and then, you know, take the crucifixion wafer and red wine at Sunday church, and then you'll be moral after you say some prayers. To say that that's all necessary, or else you won't be a moral person, is or that's the only way to become moral, is misleading. Most of the people saying this were themselves children and that read like stories like The Little Red Hen. And, you know, we were able to, before ever joining a church, we could read that story as young kids and know that it was about teamwork. We weren't making claims like unless you sorry, you can't work in a team convincingly unless you go home to a house where you own a pet hen that's red. One thing I've learned about hospital environments in Canberra will probably leave me frightened for many years about the sorts of ethics that health officers are willing to think are sensible. And one is that whether you are Christian or not, if you were taken into the Calvary Hospital and there's irrelevant talk about you being thought in another person's mind, and without law enforcement or a legal officer to represent the person going into the hospital, the health officer there may have guards randomly pin someone to the floor on the rumor, a hearsay-based rumor, that they will harm themselves or someone else without unawares. And yet they're bearing a logo saying "Give thanks to Calvary." He gave his life at that sacred moment of Calvary. It's like, no, he was executed and probably didn't deserve to die. Don't give thanks. Fuck off.
Look, to me, it's a privilege to have made it.
See, I got 2 minutes 37 and 21 points.
Whatever, Luke. Whatever.
What's going on here? I'm trying to remember who it was. I got this email about this scenario. It was rejected from a submission for a Star Trek or Star Wars episode, and it was in the future, and there was a mental I can't remember which it wasn't characterized by, but one element to it was that the people suffering it would think that satellites had contacted them somehow or interacted with their minds. But that could have been. Then they'd go and talk to someone else about it, and they could be above ground, on the ground, above ground, which is what non-terrestrial, geostationary. But given quantum fields, then there will be. It doesn't really matter so much where, the way that quantum fields work, with the Doppler effect. So Gary Kanza and Roger Toll, these 16th century church Freemason martyrs of Christians, seem to think they're getting it wrong when a person's even a Christian. All you would have to do is have Depeche Mode singing Personal Jesus, and they would figure you thought Jesus Christ was your personal Lord and Savior. Especially if you know anybody with long hair, or semi-long hair. So he will then move to wonder if you think you've really been in locations, if you're a target, that correspond to scenes where Christ is said to have performed supernatural miracles in the three forged Gospels, St. Matthew, St. Luke, and St. John. They don't see themselves as criminal, but they just think they've got a smarter religion and that it's as relevant as it was in the 16th century. Yeah, so if basic rights include the right to expression, the right to move, the right to life, the right to health, life, health, expression, movement. Yeah, there's those four. And then there's things like right to religion. Then it shouldn't be in the same. It should be separated categorically immediately, so that other people do not think that it's a basic right to life to be involved in some sort of religious club. Because most of the most infringements of rights that I've observed, when they're almost always motivated by someone with beliefs. Wait a second. My thoughts when I sat down and started to type, um, and there was some time spent re-engaging on forums online, and then I worked on a book draft which we retweaked I don't know how many times, and it was going to be my first book. I didn't want to say I wanted to write an atheist book, because some of them are really shit. I've read a lot of shit ones. I've read a lot of ones that assume one categorical definition of a kind of atheism, atheology branch, and exclude any mention of another one or any other ones, and or who equate it with a religious right of its own. So atheists don't really, to say do atheists get together and believe in one another is so it's fucking annoying. We're going to go and start talking like that after what we've had to put up with in churches to this point. Where is the tax exempt status for also for the religion atheism, and what does it mean if you read quotes like, if atheism is a religion, like off is a TV channel, or abstinence is a sex position? And I don't think, religious people think of it that way because they think they had a choice between a god or a devil, but it was always a choice as to who to believe in that doesn't exist. It wasn't it wasn't, none of them have heard of false dichotomies. It's like if computer, when you first load Microsoft Paint and it has a 16-bit paint palette for and you were taught that's all the colors that there are, or something, before 32-bit color systems were developed, or whatever. People can frame incorrect questions, they can make incorrect statements, and most people get called on incorrect statements and confronted by them, but they don't. They tend to just be, they'll pay lip service to really bad questions, especially if they can market, especially if they gain more from it. That doesn't mean I haven't asked other people honest questions, but I've gotten tired of a lot of people. Basically, I understand the sorts of things now that religious thinkers will. I also see why some of the if they're going to pick any of the art that I own or have that I consider very important to me in a symbolic way or direct empirical way, or whatever the respect may be. And there isn't any when a religious person is trying to pick on something like Doppelhauser and think that they can be the religious psychiatric criminal psychology profiling squad against Manson's band in the start of last decade. And so they'll say things like, "Oh, but he's saying," and by that if you say that, then people will go and think they can proceed with those sorts of types of judgments, and that's because they still think that Jesus Christ Gospels that were plagiarized from God talking through the pages now through the spirit of the and so everything was the whole piece wasn't to be for you to think of encounter new questions. It was it was you getting subliminally programmed. I think maybe there are certain truths that maybe there could be a science of types of words, or types, like you could break sentences down or paragraphs down more into, and like the only reason it's subliminal suggestion. I've read books talking about ads cinemas having hot dogs in single-celled frames in the film, and then too many people were getting up and going to the candy bar and buying food and not knowing why they were doing it, so they banned subliminal anything. But I still remember watching Fight Club and noticing some of those little frames where Brad Pitt's appearing for just a split frame, and from wanting to design movies and clips and loving multimedia all my life, I don't think I could ever be hypnotized. I don't think I could experience a subliminal programming. But I think, nor could I judge another person to be impaired by it, for instance, unless I was religious and an art-tard. And Roger Toll is sadly both, and as is Gary Cans. Well, he's an art-tard because, he genuinely knows that I didn't go to his How to Host a Murder staff conference because is enough reason for him not to give me a death threat in the first place. One reason is an art. One thing that I will say about Doppelherz is that, and it's only going to ultimately come back as to do with my interpretation of it, is about what it symbolizes and stands for, and that is more than, obviously that's to do with the year of that album and that era. But and I'm not going to even, I would trivialize why it was symbolically important to me at that point in time in my life by any document that anyone will turn up on my computer now, or ask anyone, or talk about to anyone. And so but yeah, if right-wing religious press have offended you, or religious media media networks have offended you, then you might get why. The Christian right can think that they've got everything figured out, If they are all agreed on this without dispute, that the only way that a solution could be found to a species-wide, a race-wide state of sin, original sinfulness caused by a woman eating an apple, required a murder be done on a long-haired, poetic, nice dude, then, and that's not the strangest religion ever, and that's always more offensive than art will ever be. It's not the morals and ethics are very important, and there's very important morals just in the Little Red Hen. Without believing that kids that read that Little Red Hen do not go on saying, you'll never be able to work in a team or a group or cooperate with anyone unless you own a red hen that talks in your house and you pray to it and you have a relationship with it. So you do not need morals. You don't need imaginary figures to learn morals now. And the older that you get, the more I think that they just, yeah, well, we all know that no one needed the Little Red Hen as a kid, even when they were kids, and no one makes an issue of it now. But yet a lot of adults will still continue to say that their belief in God and religion is why they count themselves as moral citizens. Did they say moral human citizens? But if there's a religious serial killer on the TV, then it's right to say that person just isn't human. But it still makes more sense to people to say this music clip is explicit, but God made you in His image from incest in a garden, and that's not explicit. That's just holy. So what category of they could say something like everyone has the right to join or form a group scaled trust or something like that. It doesn't matter if they're in a bowling club or they're religious or they're in a church or something. That's one solution. But no, I just don't think if it's the religious nutters that always want to think they are always doing the right thing. They always know better, and they always are the ones that can be the most easily excused if they do infringe against another person's right to expression, life, health, or movement, because they believe in whole minds that don't even exist, on the basis of their non-existence, as best as they were able to detect with their mind that does exist. And they believe in them anyway. Okay. That's too long for this. So let's all agree then that since religious people even agree that when they get to express their sacred right, the first thing they try to do with it is teach everyone they're not human. God made you as part of this planet, starting with just one man, and then the first woman, she got all her woman's rights and no tampons, and she was created from his rib, and she was created for when he felt lonely. So, hang on. And because you think that story is so sacred, you like crucifixions, and then you celebrate how thankful you are for crucifixions, even though you can't tell the suicide apart from the self-sacrifice part, without saying, oh, then he must have floated into the sky. So you can't tell that apart, or the believers can't. And if you're not a believer, you don't have to celebrate any sort of incest story. In fact, they even like to keep that incest part so sacred to themselves that they'll say, no, the original sin was eating an apple. It wasn't the inbreeding. They had to do that at the time. It's like Game of Thrones, but cheesier, on a lower budget. The Tower. Who were the two that were in the same kingdom, but the brother? Anyway. So if you think Jesus died to preserve the sacredity of that Origins account, anyway, I'd be looking for any distraction from it if I were a Christian. The other thing is this, so Christians are the sort of people who, by the time they reach their 30s and they've taken communion every Sunday, give thanks for the body, give thanks for the blood, they'll get to their 30s and their hair will start to fall out, amongst the males more often, in a circular way. It can be so that a circle is left and other hair falls off, and they get like a ring of hair remaining, proportionate, coincidentally to the shape of the crown of thorns on Jesus' head, whose body they were eating when they eat crucifixions every Sunday. But when they start losing their hair, they'll call their local Christian hair doctor and say, oh, doctor, why have I been going bald? And he'll go, I bet it's workplace stress. So you are known as the religious wrong. It's not really your fault at this point, but you can burn a Bible soon. I wish you luck. My findings have been that with those phonetically and tone of voice ambitious, when they're listening to others, they might think that demographic titles like the religious right, in the religious people's minds, it might seem like God is sending them a return signal saying, you're all correct, as opposed to, okay, yeah, they have the right to make themselves as religious as they want to be, but I don't think it should be classed as a human right, and with very good reasons. Pretty much every single religion that is on offer, its own teachers will spend quite a considerable amount of time and effort teaching anyone who believes in the religion itself that they're more than human. It's essentially, or at essence, they're not human. This is only a temporary existence, and like a teaser before the afterlife, they call it. And I prefer after death. I think they should use that term. Afterlife is, I think it's bad. It puts this life into unnecessary risks. So maybe not. Maybe after death. But yeah, they should also be called the religious wrong. And it also shouldn't be that where we all agree we all should have the right to life, the right to health, the right to move, and the right to expression. All of those are vastly more essential to anybody's survival and flourishing than and any choice to be involved in a religious club is secondary. Not only is it secondary, but it's counterproductive logically to everything we ever learned as children from stories like The Little Red Hen. You could be 4 years old and learn all about cooperation and teamwork from someone reading The Little Red Hen to you. But that you could learn all those morals, and you will not insist on going home to your room every evening and giving thanks to an invisible hen. You know, even when you were that young, the hen actually, if you believed the hen was real, it would have fucked with the story. It was supposed to be about helping you develop a conscience. It wasn't about claiming that hens exist when they don't, and they're little and red and they can talk. So when you start believing you have to be religious or you don't know morals, you go against books like that. So it should not be a human right at all. And the religious teachers themselves are the first to say, yeah, actually, you're really a soul that lives forever. You're not actually human. So why it shouldn't be a human right? They're religious wrong. And I call the whole demographic the religious wrong. Actually, also, most people's openness to think that drugs and substances that people can put in their mouths, whether they're from pharmacies or on the street, will ruin your lives and make your dick shrink and make your balls retract into your ass. But it's been taught and educated by men like Gary Kanza and Roger Toll that will do that sort of thing. And the religious people haven't gotten over how an apple used to cause original sin. So, you know, they got all these weird theories. They haven't worked out that was... maybe inbreeding was worse than eating one apple for like the beginnings of a women's lib movement. So, you know, tell any religious person that believes in the Bible that if you put anything in your mouth, it'll ruin your marriage and everything, and they'll pretty much be open to it. Also, yeah, Roger and Gary are saying that they love to say horrible things about the drugs they're not allowed to sell, but they won't caution you about known side effects that are potentially bad to drugs that are high profit that they do sell. And the pharmacist code of ethics is supposed to say a pharmacist will always take the health needs of the patient as the first consideration. But yeah, their slogan that they worked out, I thought was brilliant, was everybody needs the capital chemist. But they are very proud of the history of white Australia, so they should say, at least, if they want to be real with us, they should say everybody except for the overturned Aborigines needs their capital chemist. And then at least we can get the joke, how they honestly thought, you know, a slogan like that would be... it's offensive either way, isn't it? But yeah, I think these disclaimers we see on music videos and art and video games, they all belong at the inside cover of the religious holy books, you know. Warning, this may contain a story about the garden of inbreeding. That is more offensive, that story, than any rock song I've ever heard, any art piece or any game I've ever played on any computer or gaming console. So why is the disclaimer? And it's worse, it makes me feel sick just thinking of the story than, you know, any side effect from any drug as well. So go and fucking figure. Instagram, fucking Facebook, and whoever else is watching this. This is the 19th of June 19. This is the hand sign. Middle fingers and thumbs. some people have been writing and saying that they think even opening a discussion about the end of Christianity and religion, it's going nowhere, and the sponsorship of this show's been scarce to none, and I'm thinking of quitting, but I'll have to. I'll be back. Yeah, because now in modern terms, these two men that made these two Freemasons that made this capital chemist group, they sound as like any fundamentalist Christian preacher who wants to say that you'll get tortured in eternity in hell unless you give 10% of your money. Gary Kenz and Roger Toll are exactly the same, and with all the technological advancements they're able to buy now, they are completely conspiratorial against the entire bisexual rights movement. And just look up statistics of declines in bisexual health rights movement members in Canberra, and it's because of deliberate efforts from men like these guys, because they don't think the rights movement is a legitimate one. Instead, they think that these Freemasonry church teachings from the 16th century is more legitimate, and it means more to Australia's future. That this pathetic 16th century church, that they don't even have the guts to bring an advocate to step forward and debate their beliefs against a Christian and atheist, whoever. And therefore, in their, they've made healthcare the new cover story for Cardinal Pell to fuck a fetus or a 2-year-old kid or an 8-year-old kid, and then say, "Oh, but I do all this charity work." And the first clues are their two slogans. Everybody needs their capital chemist, and we know what matters. No one who's a committed pharmacist would ever want to put a slogan like that forward to the community here in Canberra. You've got to be a fucktard to even attempt to do something like that. Like, you've got to have been raping the marketing officer while she was trying to type the slogan for it to come out the way that it came out. And I can tell you more than I'm going to tell you in these clips, because I worked for these cocksuckers for 2 decades, and so their destruction will be a great, I think, doorway for future ties between the question of the flourishment of the Federal Human Rights Act and our glorious friendship with the United States of America. We're better than the religious right. We're going to prove ourselves better than the religious right. We're not going to lose our hair in a circular pattern because we think it's wrong. Or we think it was right to be taught that it was wrong to show respect to Jesus getting murdered. Fuck that. Fuck shit ass bitch cunt shoobity doo up skip de bebop Christopher Reeve.